My name is Bella, a 30-year-old programmer who enjoys the comfort of working from home. My story begins at a friendly mixer where I met Silas. Our conversation quickly turned to finance, and when I mentioned my savings, which had amassed to a considerable sum, his interest visibly perked up. Despite not being particularly remarkable in other respects, Silas's engaging conversation led us to marriage. A year has passed since we tied the knot, yet we remain childless. I take pride in my career. My steady income as a programmer has allowed me to nearly reach a milestone of $700,000 in assets. I often ponder whether, if I continue at this rate, I might one day afford to retire early and live off my savings. This dream of financial freedom was inspired by my upbringing. Orphaned at 10, I was raised by my grandparents. My grandfather, a shrewd businessman, often reminded me that no amount of money was ever sufficient. He believed that money was meant to be circulated and wisely spent it attracts more of its kind, he would say. From the start of my career, I followed his advice, investing part of my salary into investment funds, gradually building the nest egg I mentioned. Silas, throughout our courtship and into our marriage, seemed genuinely devoted, always courteous and chivalrous, often humorously insistent on putting ladies first. However, the reality of our marriage took a stark turn when I discovered Silas's betrayal. He had secretly used my savings to purchase a house, planning a new life with someone else. His confession came bluntly as he declared our marriage pointless due to my supposed financial ruin, prompting him to seek happiness elsewhere. His callous betrayal left me devastated and furious, struggling to reconcile the man I married with the one who now so cruelly dismissed our vows. As I face this painful betrayal, I reflect on my grandfather's words about money and relationships, realizing the hard truth in his wisdom about the complexities of wealth and human nature. My husband, Silas, always knew how to make me feel special. In the early days, he would pull out my chair at restaurants, open the car door for me, and wait patiently as I got in. These gestures made me feel truly loved and cherished. I was proud to call him my husband, and our relationship felt genuinely affectionate and fresh. However, everything changed dramatically after we got married. One morning, after I'd been up working until the early hours, I left our bedroom feeling weary but hopeful for a new day. "Good morning," I called out cheerily to Silas, who was lounging on the living room sofa. But he was too engrossed in his smartphone to even acknowledge me. After a quick shower, I settled in front of my computer and immersed myself in my programming work, the room filled with the soft clattering of my keyboard. Suddenly, Silas came over and tapped my shoulder. "What is it?" I asked, turning to face him. "Give me some money," he demanded casually, as if this were a normal request. This had become a frustrating routine. Reluctantly, I handed him the money, and he quickly left the house. Over time, as I began to refuse his demands for money, his demeanor shifted. He grew indifferent and cold. The warmth we once shared dwindled, and our interactions became sparse and strained. One evening, after returning from a long day, I found Silas sprawled on the sofa. The TV was on, but his attention was fixed on his phone. "Should I turn off the TV?" I inquired, hoping to engage him somehow. "I'm watching it." "Don't touch it," he snapped, grabbing the remote from my hand with a roughness that took me by surprise. Silas, an ordinary executive officer, had recently been given a transfer, which I thought might be contributing to his foul mood. But as days turned into weeks, his irritable behavior persisted. He would snap at anything I said and stopped joining me for dinner at home. One evening, I called him. "Aren't you coming home yet?" "I'm making dinner." "No, I don't need to." "And if you're going to complain, you don't have to cook," he retorted sharply. His words stung, and I was left wondering how our relationship had deteriorated to this point. What had happened to the considerate man I married? The change was baffling and heartbreaking. Why is it like this? Is it because of work? What else could it be? That was always his explanation, and getting through to him became increasingly difficult. I thought it would be too troublesome to argue back, so I managed to hold back somehow. But as time went on, the days he didn't come home began to increase. Without any prior notice, whenever I called, all I got were excuses, I have an unexpected business function tonight and won't be able to catch the last train. Looks like I'll be booking a hotel room." This response became all too familiar. Does business really demand his presence so often and unexpectedly? I was unsure. But perhaps it was possible, though I started to harbor suspicions. One day, while cleaning, I stumbled upon his tablet left charging a device he normally carried everywhere. Just then, a message flashed on the screen. "Where should we go today?" The place we went last time was good, right? Adorned with numerous heart emojis. It was undeniably from someone else, likely his mistress. I'd had my suspicions, but seeing such blatant evidence of infidelity was a different ordeal. A woman's pride begins to ache in such moments. Driven by a mix of nausea and resolve, I delved deeper into the tablet. The conversations and photos with the other woman were abundant, painting a clear picture of betrayal. Their interactions, also trivial and shallow, reminded me of middle schoolers experiencing their first crush, nothing but foolish banter. The more I read those vulgar messages, the more my despair turned to anger, and that anger kindled flames of revenge within me. Determined, I decided that if he could have a mistress, then I would certainly seek compensation and pursue a divorce. It was with this newfound resolve that I was blindsided by his sudden declaration, contrary to my expectations. "Let's get divorced. I'm marrying a new woman." "Huh. I bought a newly built house too, so it's goodbye to you," he said without a hint of remorse. His words, so cold and detached, confirmed the painful reality of our broken vows and the hollow shell our marriage had become. "I bought a house," my husband announced cheerfully, a smug smile spreading across his face as he spoke of his newly acquired property. "Where did you get that kind of money?" I asked, baffled by his sudden affluence. "Well, from various sources," he replied nonchalantly, leaving me even more perplexed. As he laid the divorce papers on the table, he instructed me briskly, "Just fill out your part and submit it." It was all so matter-of-fact, devoid of emotion. "We probably won't see each other anymore, but take care," he added, and with his belongings already packed, he left our home swiftly. Within moments, it was as if he had never been there at all, leaving me stunned and speechless. Before our marriage, I knew of his careless ways with money and relationships, and I had braced myself for potential issues. Fortunately, my own financial security was robust. I had significant savings and earned more than he did. Yet, the thought of him purchasing a newly built house nagged at me incessantly. How could he, who often begged me for pocket money, afford such an expense? Driven by suspicion, I went to check my bank passbook only to find it missing. Panic set in as I frantically searched, but it was nowhere to be found. The passbook that held the $700,000 I had saved since my single days seemed to have vanished. Turning to my banking app in desperation, my heart sank. The balance displayed a mere $1. The money had been withdrawn in 4 large transactions. A wave of fury overwhelmed me, a feeling so intense and pure, unlike anything I had ever experienced toward anyone before. "I won't forgive him," I vowed silently, my resolve hardening. "I'll get my money back, and I'll make him pay back double." That same day, I visited a law firm. The lawyer listened as I explained that I did not know my husband's current whereabouts or the details of how he had spent the embezzled money. As we began to unravel the tangled web of deceit and theft, I knew this was just the beginning of a long and challenging fight for justice. Deciding to take legal action, I realized I should consult the police and file a report. The police could then look for my husband and investigate how he had spent the stolen money. If found, I could initiate several procedures to reclaim the embezzled funds, including sending a registered letter demanding repayment or seeking mediation in court. Given the breakdown of our marriage, divorce seemed inevitable, and discussions regarding the division of property and compensation would be necessary. Although I'd already decided on divorce, I initially hesitated to involve the authorities, opting first to consult with the police. The police officer I spoke with explained that embezzling a spouse's savings is considered a crime, specifically embezzlement or misappropriation, both punishable by law. For criminal charges to be pressed, It must be proven that the embezzlement was intentional, violating the spouse's property rights. If a significant amount of money was involved, the consequences could be severe. Armed with this knowledge from both the lawyer and the police officer, it became clear that my husband's actions, his infidelity, and the theft of my savings constituted serious breaches of trust. These actions provided sufficient grounds for a divorce and justified my claims for damages and compensation. Moreover, these were undoubtedly criminal acts. Following my lawyer's advice, I decided to send my husband a written claim for damages and compensation for mental anguish. Less than a week after filing the report, the police located my husband's whereabouts. About a month after sending the claim, my phone rang. "Hey, what's going on? What are you talking about?" The voice was unmistakably my husband's, clearly confused. "I got a bill from a law firm," he continued, perplexed. I responded calmly, knowing that this was an expected part of our ongoing legal proceedings. "Oh, that? I thought it was about time," I said, indicating that the legal actions were merely the beginning of holding him accountable for his actions. "I thought it was about time to get serious," I said calmly as I explained to my husband that the bill sent through the lawyer demanded $600,000. This amount was for the repayment of my savings plus additional compensation, and it was a non-negotiable condition for our divorce. I had also hinted at pursuing criminal charges if he failed to comply. "We're married, you know. Your savings should be shared by the married couple, right?" my husband argued, clearly misunderstanding the law. "Just so you know," I replied, firm and clear, "whatever money I saved before we tied the knot is still mine, not ours. So if you took any without asking, I can legally demand it back." "Impossible," he scoffed, but then his tone shifted abruptly. "Fine, $600,000 then. I'll sue you in civil court and seize all your assets. I'll even consider pressing criminal charges, so brace yourself." After a moment of tense silence, he changed his tune. "All right, I'll pay. What's gotten into you all of a sudden? If I pay off the $600,000, you won't press criminal charges and agree to the divorce, right?" "Exactly, you catch on fast," I affirmed. From his laughter over the phone, I could almost guess where he planned to get the money. "You plan to use your mistress to pay, don't you?" "So what? Money is money," he retorted, still oblivious. He's still being deceived, still seeing that woman without even knowing her background, I thought to myself. I had already hired a private investigator and gathered all the necessary information about her. As a parting gift, I decided to enlighten him. "Do you think of that woman as the daughter of a wealthy family or a CEO's daughter?" "I don't need to answer you," he snapped defensively. "Oh, well, listen carefully. That woman is a professional scam artist. She approaches wealthy-looking men, claiming to be an heiress or a CEO's daughter, takes their money, and then disappears. Several men have filed police reports against her." "No way, you're lying." "She's the CEO's daughter. I've met her father, and he promised to make me the CEO in the future," he insisted, naive as ever. "Oh my, you're as stupid as ever. By the way, did you buy the new house in her name?" "How foolish of you. That can't be true, right? We were engaged. I even bought her a ring," he stammered, his voice tinged with panic. "That's quite something," I replied dryly. "By the way, is she still at the house?" He hesitated, then confessed. She seemed to be considering something after seeing the documents from the law firm. "She said she'll go back to her parents' house for a while and left last night." "Oh dear, did she run away?" "That's impossible," I mused, barely concealing my satisfaction at his dawning realization. The tables had turned, and now he was beginning to see the truth of his precarious situation. "Well, did she run away?" I asked my husband during our call, urging him to confirm whose name the new house was under. After a brief pause, I decided to end the conversation there. "Let's end it here for today," I said, and hung up the phone. A week later, my husband returned home, his face ashen. "That woman sold the house and disappeared," he confessed, a predictable outcome in my eyes. Seizing the moment, I pressed him, "So, you'll pay back my savings and the divorce settlement, won't you?" There's no way I have that kind of money. Please don't divorce me, he pleaded. He had cheated on me, got dumped by his mistress, and even lost the house, an utterly despicable chain of events. But it was too late for regrets or playing the victim now. I was resolute. I won't give you a single penny, and the divorce is definite, I told him, every interaction with him intensifying my headache. But I was deceived. I'm the victim here, right? He protested, attempting to twist the narrative. Desperate, he clung to my legs, sobbing and begging for reconciliation. Please, I need you. I'll dedicate my life to you this time, I promise. What a disgraceful sight it was. It's too late to play the victim, I reiterated. Everything from taking my money to being deceived by that woman is all your own doing. Be prepared. With those final words, I forcefully pulled away, and he left, dejected. The divorce was swiftly finalized. I promptly filed a criminal complaint against my ex-husband and his mistress, and also pursued a civil lawsuit to reclaim my money. Eventually, both were arrested. My ex-husband, left to wallow in his sorrows, frequented a shabby bar. His mistress, having carried cash from the house sale, was caught with only about $145,000 left of it. During the investigation, my ex-husband admitted, I married for my wife's savings. I never thought I would be deceived in the same way. This confession confirmed his unchanging attitude of playing the victim, which was just the kind of man he was. He deserved everything that came his way. Apparently, that woman had targeted my ex-husband as her 14th victim, deeming him easy to deceive. The total she swindled from her previous victims was around $4 million, much of which she squandered on extravagant visits to host clubs. It seems that karma had its way in the end, as both got what they deserved. Although I was initially dismayed by my own lapse in judgment in choosing a partner, the ordeal ended somewhat favorably for me. Thanks to my lawyer's efforts, the newly built property was successfully transferred to my name. I had no desire to live there, so after renting an apartment and starting anew, my job as a programmer was thriving and my salary increasing. I considered saving money again when I learned that the house, located in an area undergoing redevelopment, was valued at $2 million. Selling it seemed the only sensible choice. Perhaps with the proceeds, I'd treat myself to a nice overseas trip, a journey around the world even. Despite the turmoil of divorce and crime, my assets had unexpectedly doubled in a short period, filling this new chapter of my life with hope for further growth. Watch over me, Grandpa, I thought.